guys. All right. So, God planted this word in my heart about 3 weeks ago now, and when I was asked to preach, knowing I had a free topic, I jotted down notes till last Wednesday came, and well, here we are. So I present to you our historic call to arms. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. Hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch, one if by land and two if by sea, and I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm, for the country folk to be up and to arm. And lo, as he looks on the belfry height, a glimmer and then a gleam of light. That was all, and yet through the gloom and the light, the fate of a nation was riding that night. And so through the night went his cry of alarm, a cry of defiance and not of fear. A voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word that shall echo forevermore. Did you know that Paul Revere was not your average person? He carried a high position as an artisan craftsman, engraver, dentist, and master goldsmith. He was doing well during the oppressiveness of the British-ruled colonies, but he looked upon his brethren and knew something had to be done. He was an instigator of the Boston Tea Party, served as a spy, and risked everything to take up the cause of freedom. He sparked the fire of the American Revolution against the invading British, and well, we all know how that went for them. Did you know that God calls us to the same positions in Joel 2:1 and 1 Thessalonians 5:4? Are you watching? Are you ready at a moment's notice to take up the arms of prayer and intercede and stand in the gap for your fellow man? Do you see injustice and sit in the comfort of your position, or are you willing to sacrifice it all for the hope of freedom? You see, God asks us to pay attention, to see the need and sound the alarm. We sit in a position of authority over death, hell, and the grave, but are you actually doing anything with it? I challenge you to take up and ring the alarm for your fellow man. The gates of hell wait for no one. So let's dive into another historic moment, D-Day. Without the brilliant planning and heroic sacrifices of the D-Day invasion, the Allies may have never defeated the Nazi forces in Europe. The first waves of American fighters were cut down in droves by German machine gun fire as they scrambled across the 50 miles of mine-riddled beaches of Normandy into northern France. But the U.S. forces persisted, pushing forward to a fortified seawall and then up steep bluffs to take out the Nazi artillery positions by nightfall. Less than a year later, on May 7th, 1945, Germany signed an unconditional surrender. Could you imagine what the world would look like today had our soldiers not braved the insurmountable challenges and stormed those beaches? No freedom. Hitler championed. Millions upon millions of lives eradicated. Are you willing to storm enemy lines for the fate of those around you? For the fate of the world? You see, we have champions throughout the Bible who did just that. We have Joshua, Gideon, Nehemiah's refusal to come down from the wall, Jericho's utter decimation fought for with faith alone, and Elijah's defiance in the face of Jezebel and the prophets of Baal, destroying every last one after God showed himself true, and then calling in the cleansing rain to wash the land and stop the drought. How are you stepping forward to defend the future for those that come behind you? Our last touch of history is part of Winston Churchill's speech before the D-Day operation. I do not at all underrate the severity of the ordeal which lies before us, but I believe our countrymen will show themselves capable of standing up to it and carry on in spite of it. Every man and every woman will have the chance to show the finest qualities of their race. For all of us at this time, whatever our sphere, our station, our occupation, or our duties, I see great reason for intense vigilance and exertion, but none whatever for panic or despair. Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. Churchill knew that failure was not an option, and his powerful speech boosted the morale and patriotism of the British people. Ezekiel 22:29-31 states, "The people of the land have used oppressions, committed robbery, and mistreated the poor and needy, and they wrongfully oppressed the stranger. So I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found no one." Are we willing to stand in the gap before the Lord on behalf of our land? Do we want to be found wanting? I definitely don't. Winston stood in the gap and called his people to greatness, and God is asking that each one of us to be the Mordecais, the Davids, the Samuels, the Esthers, and most importantly, like Jesus himself. So what does this mean for us? Well, we are the ones to ring the alarm like Paul. We are the ones that are storming the front lines of war to defend those that come behind us like the Allied forces. We are the ones who stand in the gap and call out the gold in our brethren to take up the same call like Churchill. To save our people, to save for the kingdom, to further God's army of believers and help them stand in faith and boldness against all the forces of the evil. Will you join me? Thank you.